Okay, guys, welcome into the Global Grind Podcast, episode number 9. Matthew Richardson here with Joe Speckner. Great to have you on. So he has quite the introduction here, and as always, I like to introduce my guests because I have really cool people on here. And as you've worked really hard and done things in your life, it has a way of humbling you, as we all know. And so I like to be able to make sure I introduce them so you guys get a feel of who they are from my perspective, because that's kind of what this is about. Joe is currently running for House District number 5. And as you guys know, a lot of us that maybe weren't so political, because the biggest thing, at least for me and a lot of people that I resonate with, is that as Joe said, and I'll quote this from him, the best government is the one that you talk about the least. That's definitely not the case right now. And so kind of the point of this is here to get to know Joe a little bit. Joe is born and bred in Wyoming. He is a third generation farmer rancher. And so it's pretty cool when we're talking like, hey, you settle on a plot of land and you build a life for yourself. And Joe has very much enhanced that. And while he is doing that, a lot of us are busy. Like, I have my dogs at home. I have multiple businesses and kids. Joe and his wife both drove to Laramie from Torrington, and both are practicing law now and got law degrees in the meantime. So this is a pretty cool guy to get to know. They've done some things that I hope will open your mind a little bit. And he's not into politics now for his health, obviously. So I think that basically our goal for this, and my goal for this, is that I've had some conversations with people like Joe. And we're fooling ourselves if we don't think that some of these things that we're seeing happening on a global or national scale aren't maybe the seedlings of what could kind of have us lose control here at our local level. And as you guys know, culture, community, mindset, ethos, our values and ethics are so important to us here in our gym, in our community. And so it's just going to be good to kind of get a little bit of perspective at what Joe's about, what's going on, and we can go from there. So the hardest pick setter I know, Joe Speckner. I actually remember the first time that my dad and I came out, when you and Michael were younger. We pull up here. So my Joe lost his mother to cancer. I lost my grandfather to heart disease, and his dad and my grandmother are married. And so I remember going out there, and you're probably 15, 20 years older than me. Yeah. And so I'm looking up, we pull out to this old, they got their shops, they got a farmhouse, and there's these big two buff guys out there, him and his brother playing one-on-one and just knocking each other into the dirt. And I'm like, man, these guys are cool. Yeah. And yeah, here we are today. So we've hooped a lot, both built our businesses, and grown up a little bit, or some might say of age. So without further ado, Joe Speckner, welcome, Matt. On, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, that's quite an introduction. But yeah, as Matt said, I grew up here, farm, feed cattle, lived here my whole life. Along the way, my wife and I decided, hey, let's go get law degrees, and we went to law school. And we commuted 2 years from Lingle to Laramie during law school. Same time keeping our businesses running, chasing kids in school. And so we proved out that with the right mental frame, you can do hard things. We liked showing this as an example to our daughters that, hey, you can do hard things. You just got to have the right mindset, be organized, and you can accomplish a lot.
What is that mindset? And well, before we kind of get in onto some of the things maybe you're doing currently, just kind of talking on the past a little bit, like, what was that kind of a miserable time to some degree too, in a grind, or what did you guys have to change, and what was your mindset to be able to, I mean, that's something that can consume somebody that has nothing to do but go to school for that, let alone, and when we're talking an operation, how many cattle are you guys feeding?
Oh, we've got a decent sized feeding operation. We're permitted for up to 4,000 head, but it's all about putting structures in place, right? So you got to put systems in place and have the right mindset so that you're not having to be bogged down with little decisions all the time. You put the right organization to work, and then you can accomplish a lot. You got to have the right people around you. You have to invest in the right technologies, and if you do those things, then you're not not getting slowed down in the mud on making little decisions all the time. You've got to build a system, build a culture so that it allows you to accomplish more.
I anyone that is, I mean, this could be whether you're running multiple businesses and pursuing a degree. This could be just the systems that you put in to make sure your kids are getting to practice on time, right? And and I think these things, and this is what we're really big about in the gym, is like the foundational level of like what are your own self-operating systems for yourself, because it does come from self to your relationship, to your family, to your businesses, to your community. And so, yeah, I mean, otherwise there's just no way that you would be always bogged down trying to maintain what you have rather than be able to go branch out and grow and do things that, and obviously right now you're in a place where maybe the things you're doing are a little more for purpose, right?
That's right.
And so let's go ahead and get into that. We've got our law degree now, and then I'm sure it was on your bingo card to get into politics.
Yeah, something I never ever thought I would do, much less now, but you just start seeing those things as a viewer, kind of a casual viewer, seeing the trends in politics and everything. And a person can only be dissatisfied with what they see for so long before, you challenge yourself. You say, hey, am I going to get involved and be engaged and see if I can affect some change in a meaningful, positive way? Or I have to just, take myself out of it, but I'm not willing to just sit on the sidelines and just throw tomatoes forever. So that's what kind of compelled me to say, hey, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna get into it wholeheartedly and see if I can be positive and contribute rather than just sit on the sidelines. So that's where I'm at. That's where I feel like I can give some of my life experience, some of my values, and some of my education, my training to affect positive change in this way here. And this is really a culmination of putting in those systems, building on what we've learned over time of how to be efficient, how to organize so that you can accomplish multiple things at a high level so that you keep quality control up and be able to take on more all the time. And so this is really, really given me that opportunity to do something that I wouldn't have otherwise.
If you didn't have those systems in place.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you got to start with the mindset, and then I tell my guys, my team all the time, it's not just about what you plan. Plan is only a small fraction. You got to be able to execute. What can you execute on? And that's where you really see results. Is you can make good plans all day long, but if you can't execute them, you won't see the results. And so I'm always focused on what can you deliver, what can we actually do, and then push for that. I would much rather have it a less than perfect plan that gets executed than sit forever with developing the plan, waiting for time to come along. That's a recipe for just sitting forever waiting for perfection to show itself to you.
That is A1 filter to be able to put that through. And you and I both know you think the hardest part is maybe building a business or getting the systems to be able to go pursue a different education and whatnot. And some of the hardest things it's like once it's going is then how do you keep growing it, like you said, while maintaining and do it at a high level. I think that's a great, because there's going to be a ton of ideas and a ton of opportunities, right? Those kind of are a dime a dozen, but having the filter of like, hey, what are we actually capable of executing from, maybe it's a time perspective, maybe it's a resources perspective, whether that be humans, finances, whatever. That's great. So take us a little bit down this path a little bit. This will be maybe a multifaceted question here, but what is your upbringing? What is your experience? Tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today. What you feel like you've learned and what you want to be able to bring into the world right now, that you've set up systems to where you're like, hey, I have some stability to now go out and try to make a change and do some things for a purpose in the world? Because I think that's where a lot of us start, is like, we're wanting to build a family, we all want financial freedom, and we got to build those systems. But then as we age, we get to a place where it's like, hey, how can we leave our mark on the world to be a better place? And then also kind of wrapping in, what are the things that you saw that kind of got you out of the stands and on the playing field,
Sure.
so to speak, and then what are you about?
Yeah, you bet. I guess I have to start with where it all starts, and that starts with the model that you were raised with, and so I had the benefit from a young age to have that modeling come from my dad. My dad was a hard worker, self-starter, and the values that I've adopted without even knowing it were watching from his example, which was he was always the first to start, the last to be done, and hardest worker in between. And there was never anything on the farm or otherwise that my dad would ask of somebody to do that he wasn't already willing or doing himself, and so that was leadership exemplified, so I could see that every day, being fiscally responsible, living in within his means, and having some delayed gratification, that if you saved today, you didn't have to worry as much about it tomorrow, and so those are some of those core values that I grew up with, that I think are even more broadly like Wyoming values, having a sense of personal accountability, being a self-starter, being able to take care of yourself. These are some of the values that I grew up with that I would like to see preserved and furthered, whether it's in politics or just in the culture of the people around us, And so who I am today, I feel like I'm a go-getter that way, and I want to see those values preserved, even down in Cheyenne, because at a 30,000 foot view, policy that does come from Cheyenne can influence us all. And my philosophy on that is like the government that governs best is that's closest to the people, so local control, and the government that we all love is the one that we actually don't have to talk about that often. And so if government is just in the background doing its thing, not imposing on people's rights and letting people live their lives and have their freedom and liberty without over excessive burden from the government, that's the way it should be.
Because ultimately, it's more or less was designed to be a service to the people, right?
That's right. Yeah. Government has legitimate roles, but it was never intended to be essentially doing everything for us, right? We're supposed to protect our freedoms. Government has very finite, specific things that it's supposed to do, enumerated powers, and it has a way to do that and a way to fund that, and it really should be the least that it can be. The most efficient, leanest government is the one that will allow people to use and enjoy their property the most, and be kind of like their own pioneers in their own lives, so that they can get fulfillment that they earn for themselves rather than being dependent.
Excellent. What are some of the things that and first off, I think something to touch on is, it's one thing to I think people either have one or two examples in their life. You're either around, obviously your parents are a huge influence, because that's who you're around the most, and you're around them at an age where, so to speak, your programming is going on, and a lot of that from 0 to 13 is huge. But it doesn't always mean that because your dad did this, that you're going to follow in his footsteps, even though if you know it's the right thing, right? And so I think it's really cool that you did, and not only did you maintain what he has and preserve what he's had. You've grown it, and put your own spin on it, which is really cool. And so just kind of, and some people might have a bad example where you're like, hey, like I didn't know who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to be like this.
Absolutely.
So I think like having that discernment is super big, as well. But I think it's very respectable, that you're able to recognize those things and know how important they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And leadership examples don't always just have to come from your parents, right? And that's key. That good people should be in good positions to affect other people, but mostly just by leading by example, by showing people the way so that they can get on board with that. And that's actually one of the things that I'm impressed with the most about what you've done here, Matt. You are a self-starter. You built this place yourself. You didn't wait for somebody else to do it for you, and you lead by example. You live your culture, you live your values, and people can be attracted to that. So if there's somebody around town or here that maybe didn't have that great example growing up, they can see that in you as you just live it every day, and people need that. So if you didn't have that at home, it's a thriving community will have self-starters such as yourself leading the way there.
And what Joe's trying to say is that essentially, and then kind of going to our Wyoming values, is that it's really all up to you. It's really not political. It's not, you can blame someone else your whole life, but you can outsource these things, right? Like you can outsource having good examples and good experience. And ultimately it comes down to your own foresight and discernment and picking and choosing these pieces of people of who you want to be and what you want to be like. And then maybe even more importantly, who you don't want to be.
That's right.
That being said, on that standpoint, kind of in our, political landscape here, and we won't even call it political, the cultural landscape of Wyoming, right? Like we've talked about, the world's different now. I think people have a lens, we talked about, maybe it wasn't on your bingo card to
right.
be a politician. Well, my worldview, coming out of high school, 12 years ago, this wasn't on my bingo card. I definitely look at it a lot different. And that being said, what are some of the things that you saw that kind of got you out of the stands here, where you're like, hey, and you and I talked, before this, hey, this isn't maybe about you or I right now, but it's more about our grandkids, right, and our children, and what's their life going to be like, and are they going to be able to have the opportunities, to be able to live out these values that we think are so important to us. What did you see that got you into politics?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things that I've observed that really got me kind of motivated. I see some political winds of change that have come in where there's factions that have tried harder and harder to assert their values in our state. And even if I agree with them in principle on some things, sometimes it's as important how you go about things as what your end goal is. And so there has been efforts to consolidate power in Cheyenne, to be, top down, telling people what to do, how to do it. Just, and then a healthy dose of maybe some legislatures that don't have that experience, don't have the training. And so even if we didn't agree on some of the things of the issues, we all want good law to be written, and that can be stand up in court, that can actually be enforced. And so I thought, you know what, this is something that I have. This is experience that I have, training that I have going to law school. I can offer that to be helpful in crafting good law that can stand up in court, and then also be that voice of reason that says, hey, even if we agree on some issue of principle, this isn't, the answer isn't Cheyenne.
telling everybody how to do it. You know, we want to keep what I think of as some of these Wyoming values that I grew up with, these Goshen County values, where we are self-determining our own futures. You know, we have our personal accountability, and we need to keep government from telling us what to do that way, and allow people to grow and develop themselves.
I think that, so first off, a point to touch on, what a very unique combination. Like we said, this isn't something you planned on doing, but what a unique combination of not living in Wyoming for 5 years or 10 years, and then going, oh, now I want to influence politics here, but being born and raised here and your family homesteaded the place. You really know nothing. You know, this is, a big part of you and your identity, right? But then being able to take in that business experience and then also wrap in having the skills, as a practitioner, if you will, as someone who practices law, to be able to put that all together and knowing that, hey, not only like are the values there, and we know what direction that we want to head as a state, or really for us, we're talking about as a county, right?
Absolutely.
But also where we don't want to come from, and I'll kind of touch on this. We're having this conversation a little bit because I'm someone that doesn't really care a whole lot about government. Like, I haven't, right? But I'm like you, where, even at my age, being younger than you, I'm seeing this happening now where, like you said, I can't just keep sitting here throwing tomatoes and having an opinion, because what good does it do me? It is negative, right? It is time and energy consuming. And like you said, that, just from a mindset standpoint, why would I invest time or energy into something that I know is never going to change, right? So ultimately, you got to get involved, right? And so kind of what we talked about is like, hey, why is this important? Well, if we lose control at like the city or county level, right, and we that's off shot to our state, right, and then our state is controlled by the Fed, then who do we really have control? And can we, it does take away, like you said, some of our freedoms to be able to live the way we want, because the government can control and influence that quite a bit if we so let it, but it starts right here at the local and state level.
Right. We want to be the ones that determine our future. We want to have that autonomy, and it's a natural progression of things for power to always move up and consolidate, and so it takes constant effort and maintenance to keep that from happening. But I think it's worthwhile doing. I look at it as my kids are worth it, and your kids are worth it, and
because it's a sacrifice, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't do it because we're at this level because it's so prestigious or monetary value involved in it, but at some
probably
point,
quite the contrary, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's fine because the intentions are still there for the right reasons. That just helps make sure that you're doing it for the right reason, which is to serve my friends and my community, and to ensure that we all have the ship running straight when it's our kids' time. Because when you think about it, in a way, we're all just running a relay, and I'm just carrying the baton for my stretch here. And I want to make sure that when I hand that off, I hand it off in as good a condition as I found it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think it is so important. If there's other guys that are listening to this, or other women listening to this that are here and feel the same way that we do about this stuff, like ultimately, this is what it takes, is that no matter how busy our lives are, no matter what we got going on, at some point, if it matters enough to us, we have to be able to get up and get involved. And I think more and more guys, I see this on a national level, more and more people are getting involved in politics that, you want to run your business and you want to be left alone with your family, right? That's really what I want to do too. I want to do my purpose and help people, and just live a peaceful life. But when you see that the alternative is to look back someday and regret that, I didn't pick up the baton and carry it, and I could have, then what? And that you're definitely going to get, what the result is beforehand if you don't do anything at all.
Absolutely. And no matter what your goals are, if it's politics or leadership or self-improvement, or just doing stuff with your families, or improving your health or improving your mind, you can always do more than you think you can. You've got more in you than you may think, and all it takes is waking up, have some confidence in yourself, and go for it. Work hard, push hard in whatever direction that you see that you want to go, and I think people can surprise themselves.
Absolutely. I think one thing that I thought was really well articulated that you said is uh, just having autonomy, right? And that's basically the ability to make our own decisions,
That's right.
and losing that's what losing freedom really is, right? And one of the things so our mission statement here and our belief is that the only way that the world can change is from the inside out, one person at a time, and that's how you then change your family, your group of friends, your network, your community, and then so on and so forth, the world. But trying to go ahead and fix the system, quote unquote, or and kind of relating it to government, what your belief is, and I subscribe to this as well, is that we don't want control to come from the very top down, from our national level all the way to us, and that we're just kind of subject to that as subjects, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to be like, hey, these are the decisions we make in Goshen County because we live here every day and this is what matters to us, and that basically the state and the Fed more answers to us, but it's made at the local level, at the very source, again, from the inside out, not the opposite way. Otherwise, there's a host of problems that happen with that.
Nobody knows Goshen County values more than Goshen County residents. And anytime you start getting further and further away from that, the less and less the policy and the mindset will reflect what we actually hold here in our county as being important to us.
Do you think there's a point, if let's say that you're not able to have the political influence that you want, or more guys like you don't step up into these roles, that if we kind of lose that control, that we will have a hard time ever getting it back?
Oh yeah. These are just long-term trends, and every generation and every group of people has to have some buy-in to maintain it, because that's the natural progression is losing those things. There's quotes out there that say, we're always just one generation away from losing our republic, and I think that's just more broadly applicable to everything in life. Every time you've got to be the one that's Johnny on the spot to be vigilant in these things. If you want these values, if you want to instill good values in your kids, you have to show up every day.
Where do you think, and this is maybe more of just kind of picking on your intelligence or intuition and life experience, but because to me, it would seem logical that everyone would be sitting here like us, like, hey, I just want to do good for the world and raise a healthy family, and that's kind of it, right? Like, where does this push to take this away? Because it's hard to believe that there's people out there that maybe would feel contrary to that, Where does this come from, and why does it exist?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that it boils down to that's what we all want, right? We want to all just be left alone to live our life and raise our kids and stuff, but overall we all live in this world together, and we had to figure out a system on how we're going to coexist, and that is lived out through our government. And what happens is we don't do it expressly, but it's a tacit abdication of that. And what I mean by that is, if all of us do that, like, hey, I just want to be left alone and live my life and take care of my family, but there are these leadership roles out there, if good people don't step up and take them, well, guess what? There's other people out there who aren't as qualified, who aren't the quality of people that you might share values with, and they're happy to take those roles, and make decisions for us. So it's just a thing of constant vigilance, and good people have to continue to step up, whether it's politics or business or just in the community in general. If you want that culture in your community to be a positive one that you're happy to have your kids subscribe to someday, then we all have to be engaged more than we want to.
Framed, put together, tied up with a bow, better than I could have ever asked for there. And that is, I mean, it opened my mind to that too, because you're exactly right. Is kind of someone that would share our values probably just maybe doesn't want to be involved in government that much, right? But the problem is with that is that your hand is forced, because if you don't, then guess what? You, like you said, you're throwing tomatoes from the sideline, from stage, that don't really do anything because they're caught by a big glass buffer. Because it's like, hey, unless you're in that arena, unless you're involved, you're going to have no influence or say anyways.
Yeah, and we're all busy. We all have too much going on that we routinely think we don't have more to offer. We don't have more to give. And the sad fact of that is there's a negative truth in there. We are all going 9-0 all the time. But when you start talking about leadership roles, especially politics, you're going to find that oftentimes the people who have the time to do it are also the ones, the reason they have the time to do it is because other values in their lives are not ones you want to share. The people who have time on their hands, the same things that led them to have that kind of free time so that they can tell us what to do are not the values that I subscribe to and want to be projected or give a platform to.
Amen. And this is something that you can just kind of stay away from. I don't need to comment on it, but life is not free. It takes money. And so if you do have this quote unquote time, it's probably because someone else is maybe bankrolling you, and then maybe they don't have the best interests in mind, for us or our state. So that's just something we don't need to touch on. But again, I mean, I just, it's a pretty logical, common sense thing. I want someone who knows what it's like to live here, has lived here, to be able to be the voice for us here in Goshen County. So that being said, is there anything, and this could be from a mindset standpoint, from things you've learned, like you said, values, living here culturally. It could be as a businessman and building your operation, or it could be more like what we said on like a broad political sense, because I think you've done an excellent job there of really unpacking kind of political consciousness and as a whole, and kind of our role in this, and how this is really not this thing that we're watching on social media away from us, on the federal level. It's happening right here, and what we do right here does in fact matter, no matter how corrupt someone thinks the government is or isn't. And guess what? Greed and lust have been undefeated in time, right?
That's right.
And I don't want to make this like, it's not, I don't want to make it biblical, but it is whatever language you want to use, whether it's universal laws, natural laws, right? This is just the way the world works, right? This is just the way that it's going to work. And so we either make these sacrifices or we don't. But what would you like to leave viewers with today for closing remarks from what your thoughts are?
Well, I would just like to say, to challenge your viewers to get involved, self-actualize, figure out what you see that you'd like to be involved in, step up in volunteering, other leadership roles, or if you have goals that you want to achieve for your personal health, your mental health, go for it. Like I said, you can do more than you think, and you'll be surprised in a positive way when you buy in at what you can achieve. And I just hope that, if these are values that you share with me, that that you'll find it in yourself to take a little bit and do your civic duty and vote on August 18th, and I'd be honored to have your support and your vote. And I'm available anytime for conversations before and after the election.
Awesome. Overall, I think I like to wrap things up with, we touched on a lot of different things, but what are two big things? And I think overall, number one is that you can plan all you want. You can think about what you want to do. You can have all these great ideas. And I tell people this all the time, that because the gym is such a like your health is the foundation, right? And you and I both know that, having lost loved ones and different things. My
Right.
grandfather had his first heart attack at 38. That's 8 years ago, 8 years in the future for me. And I know that these things, can change very quickly, and it doesn't matter what I do. If I don't have my health, that rug is just ripped from under my feet, right? But overall, it's like and I tell people this in the gym all the time. It's like, hey, you can have my knowledge training wise, because you might be overwhelmed coming to the gym, or you don't know what to do. You don't know, you can make all these excuses, right? But it's just like, you have to take action. Like you just have to show up. You have to take action. And like politically, right? I mean, you just jumped into the deep end here and you just learned to swim, right?
That's right.
Like you just got to get in and take action. As dumb as that sounds, I think people make life so complicated, and it's really not. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that holds anyone back from anything. And like you said, it is your civic duty to get your health right, keep your mind right, to have good discernment, perspective, foresight, to govern your family, or have good values and character that you bring into your family. Because if you're doing that with yourself, with your family, then you can help make decisions on a broader communal level. And that overall, everyone's got an opinion, but unless you're willing to get in the trenches and do something about it, and yeah, I think it comes down to this: it's duty, right? I think that's kind of what you feel, is that for what would you build things for, and do this for your family for, if you didn't fulfill your duty in making sure that those values are preserved for us to live this way. And just kind of a tidbit on your family, Joe's daughter Natalie works a little part-time job here, and
right.
third generation has hit as well. It is just cool to see it get passed down and passed down, because that's not always the case. And you guys have been very successful in every sense. Like you guys have good character and good values and know what you're about, and you have to have that when you have a close-knit family business. I know that very well, and it's not always that those get passed down through the generations and stuff. So it's great what you guys have done, and I think that overall, who better with your skill set and how you live it out to have represent us.
All right.
Joe, thanks for having you on.
Thanks,
man.
Matt.